Welcome back to the deep dive. We're doing something a little different today.
Yeah.
Usually when we talk about fantasy, we are talking about the past. We're in castles, there are dragons, lots of mud, and, superstition.
The classic setup. It's the good old days of sword and sorcery. You get a sword, a potion, and you go fight the Dark Lord in his tower.
Right, exactly. But today, we're looking at a moment in gaming history where a franchise just looked at that whole medieval setting and decided to hit fast forward.
A hard fast forward.
We are stepping out of the crypt, we're shaking off the cobwebs, and walking straight into the glare of an electric spotlight. We are breaking down Thief II, the Metal Age.
It is such a jarring transition, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, think about where we left off. In the last deep dive on the Dark Project, you're literally fighting a chaotic god in a cave.
It was so primal.
Yeah, it's all organic, messy. You're wading through sewers and dodging zombies and haunted skeletons.
I still have nightmares about the Bone Horde. It felt ancient, like something that had been buried for 1,000 years.
And then you load up Thief II, and suddenly the lights are on.
The lights are on.
The streets are paved, there are street lamps, and I mean this seriously, there are steam-powered robots patrolling marble hallways.
It feels like we skipped about 500 years of history in the blink of an eye. It's almost like the genre just completely shifts from, I don't know, Lord of the Rings to some kind of Victorian cyberpunk.
That's a great way to put it. It's gaslamp fantasy, but with a really heavy dose of noir. And that's what we are unpacking today, the surveillance state.
And that's our mission for this deep dive.
Exactly. We aren't fighting monsters under the bed anymore. We're fighting the camera on the wall, and that's arguably much, much scarier.
Oh, way scarier. A monster you can kill. A system.
How do you kill a system? And that's the roadmap here. We're going to look at how this series pivots from that gritty sword and sorcery to this steampunk noir. We'll dissect the rise of the Mechanists, the militarization of the City Watch under a new sheriff.
Sure.
Sheriff Gorman Truart, yeah. And we'll follow Garrett's journey from just trying to do a favor for a friend to being public enemy number one. It all starts with that chilling prophecy from the end of the last arc. Keeper Artemis just says,
"Beware the dawn of the Metal Age."
And here we are. The dawn has arrived.
Okay, so let's start with that vibe check. You mentioned the lights are on. Visually, this game just hits you differently. It's not just that the graphics are better. The whole art style is fundamentally different.
It really is. And the sources, they all emphasize this shift from stone to metal. To really get it, you have to look at the architecture.
In the first game, everything was built by the Hammerites, right? The religious order.
Right. And their style was heavy stone. It was brutalist, sturdy, medieval, very functional.
It felt like a dungeon. I mean, even the houses people lived in felt like dungeons. Thick walls, tiny little windows, torches everywhere.
Exactly. But in the Metal Age, there's this new influence from a splinter group, the Mechanists. And their aesthetic becomes Art Deco.
Art Deco in a fantasy game. That feels so anachronistic. Like, shouldn't they be building Gothic cathedrals or something?
It sounds wrong, doesn't it? But you have to think about what Art Deco represents historically in our world.
Huh.
It's the style of the 1920s and 30s.
The machine age.
Precisely. It's all about symmetry, clean geometry, soaring vertical lines. It represents the triumph of industry over nature. It's the style of the skyscraper, not the castle.
So no more organic curves, no messy trees or overgrown ruins, just clean lines.
Zero organic mess. The Mechanists, as we'll see, they hate nature.
Yeah.
They see it as chaotic and sinful. So their buildings are all polished brass, glass, expensive wood paneling. It screams, new money.
It looks clean, almost sterile.
And for you as the player, as Garrett the thief, it's a nightmare.
Because you can't hide in Art Deco.
How do you hide on a polished tile floor that reflects light? In the first game, you had flickering torches. Shadows moved, they danced. You could time your movement with the flicker of a flame. The environment was dynamic and, on your side in a weird way.
Right. The light gem at the bottom of the screen was your best friend. You lived in the variance of the light, in those deep pockets of shadow.
But here, you've got electric lights. Electric lights don't flicker.
They just hum.
They hum. They're consistent, harsh, and totally unforgiving. The environment itself has become hostile to secrets. It's not just a graphics update. It's a narrative statement. The world has been sanitized.
That word sanitized feels really important here. It's like the soul of the city has been sort of bleached out.
That is exactly what the Mechanists want. And this brings us right to the theological schism that drives the whole plot. You've got the old guard, the Hammerites, versus the new guard, the Mechanists.
Okay, so wait, aren't they basically the same thing? They both worship the builder. They both love hammers. They both really, really hate thieves.
On the surface, yeah. But the nuance is in the philosophy of the tool. Think of the Hammerites as the Old Testament craftsmen,
Like a blacksmith.
exactly like a blacksmith. He uses a hammer to shape the metal, but he values the sweat, the discipline, the human effort that goes into it. The work itself is a form of prayer.
So the Hammerites are all about the work, the discipline.
Right. Their whole thing is a stroke of the hammer shapes the metal, a stroke of the whip shapes the man. It's brutal, for sure, but it's human-centric. The human is the one doing the shaping.
Okay, so what about the Mechanists?
The Mechanists, led by this new guy, Karras, they believe the tool is better than the builder. They look at that blacksmith and they say, he gets tired, he gets drunk, he makes mistakes, he's flawed.
So they want to replace the blacksmith with a machine.
Precisely.
Hmm.
They are the forward assembly line to the Hammerites' village smithy. Karras is a complete accelerationist. He believes, and this is their core tenet, that flesh is weak, metal is pure.
That phrase is everywhere in the game. It's their mantra. It's on posters. The guards say it.
It is. And it's a complete rejection of biology. The Hammerites wanted to discipline the flesh. The Mechanists want to replace it. They view humanity, all of life really, as a kind of biological error that needs to be solved with engineering.
Which brings us to Karras himself. You called him a technocrat earlier, but let's talk about his presentation. Because usually when you have a villain who wants to destroy the natural world and replace it with machines, you expect, a Darth Vader type.
A booming voice, a physically imposing figure.
And instead, we get, well, have you ever heard Truman Capote speak?
That's the perfect comparison. Yeah, it's high-pitched, sort of lisping, a bit nasal.
That is Karras. The voice actor, Stephen Russell, who also voices Garrett, which is a whole other layer of irony we have to get into, made this absolutely brilliant choice. He gave Karras this nasally, whining, almost grandmotherly voice.
It's so effective, it sounds like it should be ridiculous, maybe even a cartoon character, but it's not.
Why does that work so well?
It works because it makes him sound petty. He's not some grand warrior. He's a narcissistic genius who is genuinely annoyed that you are messing up his clean floors. It makes him feel like a bureaucrat. He's dangerous, not because he can punch you, but because he can sign a piece of paper that has you, disintegrated.
It's the banality of evil.
Precisely. He records these sermons that you hear playing over phonographs and speakers throughout the levels, and he's not screaming about damnation. He's lecturing. He sounds like a disappointed schoolteacher. My children, why do you cling to the sinful flesh? It's so condescending.
And that attitude trickles down to his followers, right? The Mechanist guards speak very differently than the old Hammerites.
Oh, totally. A Hammerite would scream, "Vile sinner, I shall smite thee." They were loud and aggressive.
Very direct.
The Mechanists use this very soft, almost flowery language. They say things like, "The builder's boiler is stoked for thee." Or, "My personal favorite, let me correct thine error."
Corrupt thine error. That's so creepy. It implies you're just a mistake in a math equation, not even a person.
It frames violence as an administrative action. They are killing you. They are fixing the system. And that is so much more insidious because it denies your humanity entirely before they even swing their mace.
So, okay, we have this new theology, this new aesthetic, but an ideology is useless without enforcement. You need muscle. And in Thief to Second, the muscle isn't just some hired goons anymore. It's the official City Watch.
And this is where the surveillance state really, really kicks in. Because in the first game, the law was, frankly, a joke.
Oh, absolutely. The guards were famously incompetent. We all remember Benny, the drunk guard who would just talk to himself about ale while you snuck right past him. They were comedic relief, mostly.
Exactly. They were either private mercenaries working for some crime lord, or they were lazy city guards who couldn't care less. But in the Metal Age, the police force gets a massive, terrifying upgrade. And that's all thanks to Sheriff Gorman Truart.
Truart is the main antagonist for this first half of the game. He's the public face of the law.
He is. And he represents the modernization of the state. He doesn't just hire more guards, he professionalizes them.
What does that actually look like in a fantasy city?
It looks like standardized uniforms, for one, a centralized code system for patrols. They establish dedicated divisions to fight major crimes. The sources even mention they introduce things like crime labs and autopsy procedures.
Wait, crime labs? In a world where people are still using swords and bows?
It's that jarring blend of eras again. Truart introduces a level of bureaucracy and methodology that makes the Watch terrifyingly effective. They aren't just standing around waiting for you to walk by. They are actively hunting criminal elements, based on data and patterns.
And the lore mentions he even started hiring women into the Watch, which was a new thing for the setting.
Yes, it's all part of his sweeping reforms. It gives this impression of a progressive modern force. Look, we are inclusive, we are efficient, we are the future of law enforcement.
But, and there is always a but in the world of Thief, this whole Law and Order facade is just that. It's a facade, because Truart isn't actually a good guy.
He's far from it. Truart is deeply, deeply corrupt. But he's corrupt in a very specific, modern way. He's not just a thug shaking people down for lunch money. He's using the entire apparatus of the state to purge undesirables.
And by undesirables, you mean?
Vagrants, prostitutes, petty thieves, basically anyone who doesn't fit into the clean image of this new industrious city. He is cleaning up the streets, but not for justice. He's doing it to feed Karras's machine.
Ah, so Karras supplies the technology and Truart supplies the raw material.
We'll get to the horror of the raw materials in a moment, but yes, that is the unholy alliance. The church and the state working hand in hand to crush the individual.
Let's talk about the tools Karras gives Truart, because this is where the gameplay pivot really smacks the player in the face. In Thief 1, if you stayed in the dark, you were safe.
You were invisible. It was your kingdom.
But in Thief 2, the streets are watched. They are watched by the Watcher eyes.
This is the game changer. This is the Panopticon.
Okay, break that down for us. What is a Panopticon?
It's a concept from the philosopher Jeremy Bentham. The idea is a prison where a single guard in a central tower can see every prisoner, but the prisoners can't see the guard. So because you might be watched at any given moment, you have to act as if you were always being watched.
It's psychological control, not just physical.
Exactly. And Thief 2 gamifies this perfectly. The Watcher eyes are these brass cameras mounted on the walls. They swivel back and forth with this very distinct mechanical grinding sound. Whir, click, whir, click.
I can hear that sound in my head right now. It triggers a genuine stress response.
It's designed to. In the first game, sound was your ally. You listened for footsteps to know where people were. Here, the sound is the enemy. It's a constant reminder that the machine never sleeps.
And if they spot you, they don't even attack you themselves.
No, they just scream. They emit this horrific, piercing electronic alarm, wee, 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 and suddenly every door in the hallway bursts open. The guards don't just wander over, they are summoned, they come running.
It completely changes the gameplay loop from avoid the guard to avoid the system.
Yes. You can knock out a guard. You can hide a body, but you can't knock out a camera mounted on a 20-foot-high ceiling. It forces you to look up. It forces you to move slower, to be more patient. You have to time the swivel perfectly.
And it just reinforces that theme we were talking about. The environment itself is the enemy now.
The city is actively rejecting you. And it's not just the cameras, it's the robots, the so-called children of Karras.
These are the steam-powered sentries, and they are terrifying because they don't have any of the human flaws that we used to exploit in the first game.
Right. A human guard gets tired. He stops to sneeze. He complains about the cold or his wife. He takes a bribe. The robots, they patrol in perfect mathematical loops. They don't sleep. They don't eat. They don't feel.
And you can't blackjack a robot.
You can try, but you'll just break your arm with a loud clank. It completely removes the player's primary non-lethal tool. It forces you to use your limited resources, your water arrows to short out their boilers, or maybe explosive mines. But those are loud.
So it pushes you back toward pure stealth. You have to be a ghost.
You have to be better than a ghost. You have to be a glitch in the machine, a rounding error they can't account for.
And they talk. The robots talk. That part is so unsettling.
That is the creepiest part. Imagine you're sneaking through a silent warehouse, and you just hear this mechanical voice droning on, reciting Karras's scripture from an internal phonograph. I am a child of Karras. The builder gave me the gift of rest-free life.
It's pure psychological warfare. It reinforces that idea that you, as a biological, messy human, are the error in their perfect system.
And for Garrett, whose entire skill set relies on his humanity, his ability to adapt, to improvise, to be unpredictable, this is a hard counter.
So let's look at how this all affects Garrett personally. We're in the street-level arc of the game here. He isn't saving the world yet. He's just trying to survive.
And this is where the storytelling is so clever. It starts small. The very first real mission is called Running Interference.
This is such a great character moment. Garrett is helping Basso the Boxman. Now, Basso is a recurring character. He's a fellow thief, but he's not on Garrett's level. He's kind of a lovable screw-up.
And he wants to marry his sweetheart, Genevieve, but she's trapped as an indentured servant in a rich guy's house.
So Garrett, the guy who famously claims he equates feelings with getting caught, decides to help Basso break her out. For free.
Why does he do it? He's not getting paid. There's no big score.
I think it shows that despite all his cynicism, Garrett has loyalty. He has a code, even if it's his own. He's willing to risk his neck for a friend. It grounds him. He's not just a ghost. He's a part of this community, specifically the criminal underclass that Truart is trying to wipe out.
It humanizes him right before the system tries to dehumanize him. It's perfect timing.
Exactly. Because right after that nice, friendly, almost heartwarming mission, things go completely sideways. We get the missions framed in ambush.
Ambush is one of the most stressful levels in the entire series, hands down.
It is. Garrett isn't breaking into a high-security mansion. He isn't raiding an ancient tomb. He's just trying to go home.
Just trying to go to his apartment. He's walking through the city streets, his own neighborhood, and he finds his face on wanted posters everywhere.
The sources compare it to a Hitchcock movie. The innocent man, well, relatively innocent of this specific crime, is wrongly accused and on the run.
It's a feeling of pure claustrophobia. In the Dark Project, the city felt big and mysterious and full of opportunity. In the Metal Age, the city feels like a trap. The safe spaces are gone. The City Watch isn't just patrolling randomly anymore. They are actively hunting him.
And they're framing him for the murder of a police officer, right?
Yes. Truart wants Garrett gone. But notice Truart's method. He doesn't just send an assassin to kill Garrett in his sleep, which would probably be easier. He frames him.
Why go through all that trouble?
Because Truart needs a narrative. He needs a public enemy. If he can point to Garrett and say, look at this dangerous master criminal, he's killing our brave officers, then he can justify the budget for more robots. He can justify the curfews, the cameras.
It's a classic authoritarian tactic. Create a boogeyman to justify the crackdown on everyone else.
Exactly. Garrett becomes the public excuse for the police state.
So Garrett is running through the streets, dodging these guards who used to be incompetent but are now deadly efficient. And while he's doing all this, he starts noticing something else. Something really strange is happening with the city's homeless population. They're just disappearing.
This is the mystery of the servants, and it is, without a doubt, one of the darkest and most horrific elements of the game's lore.
You start to see these people, I guess they're people, they wear these full brass masks that cover their entire faces. They move very stiffly. They don't speak. They just sort of mumble through the masks.
These are the servants. And as you progress through the game, you find notes and diaries that reveal what's happening. These are the undesirables that Truart has been rounding up off the streets.
So Truart arrests a vagrant, hands them over to the Mechanists, and then what?
And then Karras improves them. He fits them with these masks that are bolted onto their skulls. He destroys their free will, probably through some form of magical conditioning or even a crude lobotomy. He turns them into mindless drones that can serve as butlers and maids for the city's nobility.
That is just... it's horrifying. It's pure body horror.
It is extreme class warfare made literal. The wealthy citizens of the city, the ones throwing lavish parties and buying Mechanist security systems, are literally using the bodies of the poor as appliances.
Pass the hors d'oeuvres, robot slave made from a former beggar. It's unbelievably grim.
And the guests at the parties don't even question it. They think it's marvelous. You find letters where they say, oh, how efficient. They never spill the wine. It shows the complete moral rot of the city's elite. They have dehumanized the poor to the point where they are just another piece of technology, like furniture.
And the sources mention something about rust gas being involved with them. What's that about?
Yes. The servants are fitted with these tanks on their backs that emit this red corrosive gas. We won't get into the full endgame implications of that just yet, but even at a local level, it adds another layer of horror. They are walking chemical weapons, disguised as butlers.
It really just perfectly reinforces that Mechanist philosophy. Flesh is sinful. Karras is literally stripping away their humanity to make them useful.
And from Karras' point of view, he genuinely thinks he is saving them. He believes he is removing their capacity for sin, their messy free will. He looks at a beggar and sees a broken machine, and he thinks he's fixing it.
This all comes to a head in one of the most pivotal missions in the game, and maybe the entire series, Eavesdropping.
Oh, Eavesdropping is a masterclass in environmental storytelling. If you want to understand the difference between Thief 1 and Thief 2 in a single level, this is it.
So set the scene for us. Where does this take place?
It takes place at the Eastport Seminary. But the critical detail is the geography of the level. This new, shiny Art Deco Mechanist seminary is built literally on top of an old, crumbling Hammerite church.
That is not subtle at all.
Not even a little. It's a physical representation of the game's core theme, the new order crushing the old. The Mechanists didn't just move in next door. They built their foundation on the ruins of their predecessors.
And Garrett has to get inside. I remember the briefing for that mission. He considers using the old crypts to get in, and he says something really telling. He mutters, "I'd rather not tread where the dead sleep."
Which is such a great line, right? In the first game, Garrett was raiding tombs constantly. He was dealing with zombies and ghosts in almost every other mission. But here, he sounds tired of it. He's moved on, just like the setting has. He doesn't want to deal with all that supernatural stuff anymore.
But the irony is, he probably misses the simplicity of the crypts once he sees what's waiting for him upstairs.
One of our sources, the Tech Raptor analysis, points this out beautifully. Downstairs, in the old Hammerite section, you have the hammer haunts, those skeletal knights from the first game. You hear the rattling chains, the wind howling. It's spooky, sure, but it's nostalgic.
It's the good old days of simple monsters. You know how to kill a zombie. You use a holy water arrow or you blow it up. It's straightforward.
Exactly. But then you go upstairs into the seminary proper. And upstairs, it's all tile floors, it's humming electric lights, it's robots patrolling in perfect, predictable patterns. It's Karras's voice on the intercom, lecturing everyone. It's a completely different kind of horror. It's the horror of the machine.
And the sound design changes too, right? Downstairs is all ghostly moans and wind. Upstairs is, like, industrial music.
Yeah, the ambient track has these elongated metallic guitar riffs. It feels industrial, it feels cold and modern. It creates this sense of unease that is totally distinct from the supernatural dread of the crypt below.
So Garrett sneaks in, and the objective is right there in the title, eavesdropping. He needs to listen in on a meeting between Karras and Sheriff Truart.
And this is where we really see the power dynamic at play. Truart walks in thinking he's the big man. He's the sheriff. He thinks he's using the Mechanists to clean up his city and consolidate his power.
He thinks Karras is just this weird little priest who makes good weapons for his guards.
Exactly. But within minutes, Karras completely dominates him. The first thing Karras does is openly record their conversation on a wax cylinder.
Which is incredibly high-tech for this world.
It is. And he immediately uses it to blackmail Truart. We learn explicitly that Truart has been supplying the subjects for the Servant Project, and Karras makes it crystal clear that he owns the sheriff now. He says something like, "I have your voice on wax, Sheriff. I own you."
And we also get a demonstration of a terrifying new device.
Right. Karras shows off a machine that can literally disintegrate organic matter and turn it into rust. It's a small-scale demo. He just uses it on some potted plants, I think. But it proves that his technology works. It proves that he has the power to just erase people.
It's such a chilling moment because Truart, who is a brutal, corrupt guy in his own right, seems almost out of his depth. He realizes he's dealing with a true fanatic.
That's the key difference. Truart is corrupt, but he's motivated by greed and power. Recognizably human motivations. You can reason with greed. You can bribe a greedy man. Karras is motivated by a divine vision of a perfect, dead metal world. You cannot reason with that. They are two very, very different kinds of evil.
There's a note you can find in that level that I think sums up the Mechanist hypocrisy perfectly. It mentions some noble sent them a gift of potted plants, and the Mechanists are just disgusted.
Oh yes, they absolutely hate nature. "Hast thou been stuffing leaves in thine ears?" is one of their common insults. They view plants as messy, chaotic, and sinful. So they take the gift from the noble, but they offer nothing in return because they're so offended. It just shows their complete disdain for the entire biological world. They're offended by the very existence of a leaf.
So Garrett gets the info. He has the wax cylinder. He knows Truart is corrupt. He knows Karras is turning people into robots, but he's still just one guy against this massive emerging system.
And this brings us to Garrett's own evolution in this arc. He is the ultimate reluctant hero. He keeps trying to say, "I'm done, I'm retired, leave me alone."
But the Keepers, that secret society that trained him, they keep pulling him back in.
And circumstances pull him in. He can't just ignore Truart because Truart is actively trying to kill him. Garrett is really the only human element left in this whole equation.
That's a good point. The pagans, the nature worshippers from the first game, are too chaotic and wild. The Mechanists are too orderly and rigid. Garrett is right there in the middle.
He represents individual freedom. He rejects the rigid control of the Mechanists, but he also rejects the wild, destructive chaos of the pagans. He just wants to be left alone to do his job and live his life. He represents the balance that the Keepers are always going on about, whether he likes it or not.
But there's a massive, massive irony in Garrett's character design in this game. We have to talk about the eye.
The mechanical eye.
Garrett has a prosthetic mechanical eye that lets him zoom in, see farther. It's a huge gameplay advantage. But where did he get it?
He got it from the Hammerites. Specifically from Karras himself, back when Karras was still a high-ranking Hammerite artificer. It was a gift after Garrett lost his real eye in the final battle against the trickster in the first game.
So the very technology he's using to fight the Mechanists
Comes from the leader of the Mechanists. He is literally part machine. He is a cyborg fighting a war against a cyborg cult.
That adds such a brilliant layer of complexity to his character. He has to rely on their tech, but he completely rejects the philosophy behind it.
It does. It shows that technology itself isn't evil in the game's view. It's about how it's used. Garrett uses it to maintain his freedom and individuality. Karras uses it to enforce conformity and erase individuality. Garrett uses the zoom lens to see a guard so he can avoid him. Karras uses the camera to see a citizen so he can control him.
Same tech, opposite goal.
Exactly. It prevents the game from being just another technology is bad, Luddite story. It's more nuanced than that. It's control is bad.
So, to wrap up where we are, we have moved from the Dark Project to the Metal Age. The city has traded its deep shadows for harsh searchlights. The enemy is no longer a beast in the woods, but a sheriff with a tape recorder and a robot army.
It's a profound shift. And I think it resonates so much because it kind of mirrors our own history. We moved from the fear of the unknown, of the dark woods, of spirits, to the fear of the known, of the state, of the machine that watches everything we do.
Karras believes he is creating a utopia. He thinks he's removing human error and all the biological mess.
And that's the provocative thought I want to leave everyone with today. In our modern world of AI and surveillance and algorithmic efficiency, we are constantly trying to remove human error. We want self-driving cars because humans crash. We want perfect data to make perfect decisions.
But Karras shows us the logical endpoint of that thinking. A world without error is a world without life. A world without mess is a world without humanity.
Exactly. Is Karras's vision actually the one we are voluntarily building for ourselves, piece by piece? At what point does security become erasure? That is the question Thief the Second is asking. It forces us to ask if the messiness of humanity is a bug or a feature. Karras says it's a bug. Garrett, by his very existence, proves it's a feature.
And Garrett now knows Truart is corrupt, and he knows Karras is up to something truly monstrous with these servants, but he has no idea how big the plan actually is. The sheriff is just the beginning.
He's just the street-level enforcer. Next time, we have to look at what happens when these problems turn from a citywide threat into a global one. Because if you think a few robots and cameras are bad, well, just wait until you see what Karras is really building inside that cathedral.
But for now, Garrett is heading out into the night, wax cylinder in hand, just trying to stay one step ahead of the gears.
Yeah.
Until then, keep to the shadows and don't trust the machinery. Thanks for listening.